Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Hopefully you're enjoying the summit so far. I certainly am. It's really great to see all the interest in feature stores and to hear all the different stories from companies using it and building them and applying them in a lot of different ways. So I'm Mark Roy. I'm an ML architect at AWS, and I've been helping dozens of companies understand feature stores and adopt them into their environment. So I'm really excited that we're seeing feature stores become really a core part of the ML architecture. And we're seeing it everywhere from small startups building new apps, all the way to large enterprises, revamping their entire overall platform, maybe doing some modernization. So my bet is we'll see significant adoption of feature stores over the next couple of years. And to help me understand who's on the call, if you could actually go to slido.com and enter the code store right here, enter code store. So I'll do that as well. And I've just got a couple of quick questions for you. So first of all, what is your role? So I'm just going to click architect here and we'll see who's paying attention.
So Mark, can you say out the Slido code again, just so people
yeah, it's the code is store, S-T-O-R-E.
S-T-O-R-E, great.
Yep.
So Slido and
Slido.com and then enter store. And looks like, surprisingly to me, software developer leading the way here. We'll give a few more seconds here. Data scientists, ML engineers. Excellent. So yeah, in my role, I work with all of these roles across the board. Definitely see a lot of ML platform folks representing different data science teams within their organization, or maybe they're tasked with building or buying a feature store and trying to figure that out. Okay, let's go to the next question here. And where are you on your feature store journey? So trying to understand, are you just trying to learn about feature stores? You already are well along the path and have one in production. Let's see what folks are up to here. Okay, so a lot of folks tuning in to just figure out what the heck is a feature store and should I care? Next up, people building prototypes. That makes a lot of sense. We see a lot of that within a lot of different companies. Okay, and a few folks out there doing some advanced patterns. Would love to talk to you on that. Okay, last question here. One of my favorites. What feature stores have you used already? I see people have some in production. People are doing experiments. Who's using what out there? A lot of other, that's good. So good, we'll give that another few seconds and then we'll jump right in. Excellent. Okay, so let's jump back into the presentation here and who's actually using a feature store is kind of a common question. SageMaker feature store went live last year, and I've been working with a variety of different customers. We've got a few cool examples of companies building use cases out there. So let me share a few of those without sharing names. So we've got a large financial services company putting tens of thousands of features, deploying those and making them available for online and offline use cases. We've also got a big consumer credit company establishing a centralized feature store working across multiple different business units. An insurance company looking at vehicle damage claims and how to streamline that using online features as well as offline training. A large e-commerce company looking at how to streamline item reordering. Travel companies, we've got an airline looking at booking experience, a large hotel chain, and even a dating app. This one surprised me, doing matchmaking using SageMaker feature store. So that's kind of cool. So in my opinion, as we look at the market, I think we're at a bit of a tipping point where now there's a number of feature store offerings that are at a maturity level where If you're in the market to build or buy, you can now grab one off of the shelf, start quickly, and scale that without a lot of engineering effort. So here's the agenda over the next 20 minutes here. We'll spend a few quick minutes on an overview of SageMaker Feature Store. Then I will do a quick deep dive on some of the core concepts and APIs. And if the demo gods are willing to cooperate, I've got a number of demos. If you've seen some SageMaker before, do stay tuned because I've got a few things that you've never seen before. So that should be fun. And then I'll wrap up with some resources to help you get started, and we'll leave time for some Q&A as well. Great. So we've seen a little bit of this addressed in Jim's keynote and a couple of other talks as well. But let me just set the stage on why bother using a feature store. You know, one of the bottom lines is really that it's really expensive and time consuming and a bit painful to do all the feature engineering. And that starts with finding data, cleaning it, exploring it, coming up with features that are going to work well with your model and iterating on all of that data work, not to mention putting that effort into production to make it repeatable. This is a huge challenge. So let's look at a typical scenario that I've seen play out in a lot of different companies. So here we've got team one. They've been assigned the job to build a particular model. They know there's data sources out there. So what do? Is they connect to all these data sources and figure out the best way to clean up the data, come up with some great features, iterate on that model, put that model into production. That's great. And you know, this plays out all over the world and it does work fine. But then we move on to team two. They're building a customer churn model. Again, they're exploring different data sources. They're starting with a blank page and they end up doing the same kind of thing. No awareness even of team one or team three or four. And of course, that plays out over and over. Here, team N is building a next best action model, and they're doing the same thing. And before you know it, you've got lots of repetitive features, feature duplication. And this comes with some really big challenges, slowing your time to market to get models out the door, time to business value, duplicate features. You can end up with inconsistencies leading to inaccurate predictions. And of course, the ongoing maintenance of these features. As you want to make improvements, you're doing the improvements in silos. And not only is this about building models, but also deploying them and hosting them and making online predictions. And so each of these teams is figuring out how to best do that as well. And then what about monitoring and lineage, for example? So this is the challenge, and what SageMaker and other feature stores are going after is trying to help you solve those challenges. So now you can come up with great features, make them available for your future models, but also for other teams, other data scientists working on other models down the road. So this is a great way to speed up new development, make it easier for ongoing support and model iterations. And if you go with something like SageMaker, you don't need to build your own feature store. So we've got a managed offering, so you can save a fair amount of ML engineering effort up front, get you to the solution more quickly, but also the ongoing maintenance associated with rolling your own capability there. So a quick overview of some of the capabilities that SageMaker brings to the table in terms of a feature store. So you can use batch and streaming ingestion. We've got online and offline features and the ability to synchronize between those. So you've got consistency, avoiding that skew. We also support, of course, registering features, feature metadata. We can automatically create a catalog so that you can easily access the offline store with things like Athena or Presto. We also give you the ability to discover features and more easily reuse them by searching for them, understanding the metadata associated, who's built the features and so forth. This is a secure platform, so you've got IAM controls in there, access control, encryption, and more. And of course, it's fully managed, as I mentioned earlier. Let's drill down one more level and see how SageMaker Feature Store fits in. So you've got both an online store and an offline store and synchronization between them to keep things in sync. So your typical data scientist or workflow using the feature store is to be looking to train a particular model so you can extract data sets from across various feature groups, do time travel and more. And then also using the offline store, we've got batch scoring workloads. A lot of the use of feature stores are for doing batch scoring. And so that is supported as well. And then for using the same set of features, if you have real-time, near real-time inference to take place with your online models, you can easily and quickly get at feature vectors at low latency from the online store, and that'll be consistent with the features that you used for training. So getting features into the feature store, you've got streaming feature pipelines with things like Kinesis and Kafka, Spark streaming, and then for batch, using whatever data sources make sense, you're able to do batch feature pipelines. And this is a very common use case. You've got maybe nightly feature refreshes, or maybe even hourly or weekly. You can also do a direct load to offline store as well. Okay, so SageMaker Feature Store is not something that lives on an island. There's really an ecosystem around that. So on the left here, we're showing how you might use that with various feature authoring capabilities to make it easier for data scientists to come up with features. There's various low-code and no-code options like SageMaker Data Wrangler and Glue Data Brew to help you with that process. There's the compute side of it. Where do you do your feature processing? A lot of customers use EMR and Spark environments. They might use Glue ETL. And one of my favorites is SageMaker processing jobs, which are really easy to spin up. And you can just write simple Python scripts. And we'll see a little bit of that in the demo. Streaming from various sources to do more near real-time feature pipelines into the feature store. And then on the right here, we're showing the consumption of features when you've got hosted models online. You could use SageMaker hosting, you could use Lambda, you could use your own mechanism for serving. And then also for training use cases, you might use Athena or other tools to query the offline store and extract data sets. And then we've got batch scoring as well. On the top here, we've got feature discovery. There's APIs as well as a user experience in SageMaker Studio to discover features and browse for them. And then lastly, across all of this, you've got orchestration tools and feature pipelines. So you might use SageMaker pipelines or Amazon Step Functions, Apache Airflow, and maybe even Amazon Event Bridge for scheduling and triggering these pipelines. So bottom line is companies have told us they really want the flexibility to mix and match multiple approaches to feature development. And this gives you that ability to do that. You can either use SageMaker end-to-end or use the feature store with your various other forms of tooling in your ecosystem. Great, so this next section, just for a few minutes here, I'll cover a deep dive on a few of the core capabilities. We'll look at how to get features into the feature store. We'll look at offline store queries, and we'll look at feature retrieval from the online store. So let's dive in. In order to get your features into feature store, the core interface for that is put record. So here you're just saying, here's my feature group name, and here's a set of name value pairs that represent a record that we're putting in these features. In addition, a higher level API, the Python SDK, gives the ability to just take an entire pandas data frame and ingest that directly. So you've got a feature group out there, you've got a data set that you've put together, and you can just ingest with a single line of code. You can do the same thing with a Spark data frame as well. So let's look at how put record actually works under the hood and show you the difference between the online store and the offline store. So the online store keeps the very latest feature values for each record identifier. And so that will help you do low latency inference. These online feature values are available as soon as they're put into the online store. There's no separate infrastructure to spin up or things to stage. The records are available immediately. And the offline store is append only. So as you add new records in, they actually maintain a full history of all the feature values. So let's give an example. So if I put record IDs 1, 2, and 3 here at times 1, 2, and 3, and then I do a couple more calls where I put ID 1 again at time T4 with a different value, and then again at time T5. So what ends up happening is in the online store, I'll have one record for each of IDs 1, 2, and 3. And you can see that the latest value is there, 0.5 for ID 1. If you look at the offline store, you've got the entire history, all 3 record identifiers. And then for identifier 1, you've got the full history there at 3 different timestamps. This enables time travel, which we'll look at a little bit more closely in a few minutes. And that's all well and good for ingesting data easily. You could do so from a notebook as you're experimenting. But what about when you want to scale up to tens of millions, hundreds of millions of records or more, and you've got batch jobs that need to fit within a certain timing window overnight or hourly, let's say. How do you scale those up? Here's an example where we've got dozens of featureized data or even raw data on the left, the feature store on the right. One way to do this is to use SageMaker processing jobs. You write a simple Python script. Actually, an off-the-shelf one can do this just fine. SageMaker will automatically split these CSV files across however many instances you want to scale out to. And on each of those, it will scale up and take advantage of the full instance with the number of processes and worker threads, basically driving massive parallelism to ingest data into the feature store using that ingest call that we saw earlier. So it's really easy to scale out as well as to scale up by just configuration settings to get the data into feature store really effectively for batch ingestion. Okay, what about getting data out of the offline store? So here we've got a number of different feature groups, customers, orders, claims, visits, and so forth. Glue data catalog is updated automatically for you. So you can use something like Athena to write some simple queries like this one, where we're just pulling a data set to do model training. And you could do joins across different feature groups as well. Here we're doing a batch scoring data set. We're pulling out various features to drive some overnight scoring, let's say. To do those queries, you can do that interactively. Here we're showing the Athena console, selecting various columns from various feature groups and joining them together. You can also use the Python SDK. You could use PyAthena here, built into the feature group API. You can just get an Athena query object, create a query, run that, and get it back as a data frame. So pretty convenient to use from a notebook setting as you're iterating on developing models. What about getting features from the online store? So when you're responsible for deploying models into production and making that work really effectively and at scale and at speed, you would take advantage of something like get record. So here you pass in the name of the feature group and the record identifier you're after. You'll get back all the features, or you can specify exactly which features you're interested in. There's also something called batch get record, which is really just getting multiple records at once. So this is also for an online use case. Here I'm saying, get me 3 different records from the customer feature group, 2 different records from the product feature group, and all of these I'm going to concatenate together and feed into a particular model, let's say. All right, so that was a quick whirlwind tour here. So we've seen an overview of feature store. I've shown you how to get features into the online and offline store, how to get features out of the offline store for training and batch scoring, and then how to pull features at low latency for predictions. All right, so let's jump into some demos here. I've got a few things to show you quickly. Hello world, a little bit on time travel. I'll show you some Python and SQL pipelines and performance. Hopefully I don't run out of time. I may run a couple minutes over here, but I've got a few other things that I'd love to show you. With that, let's jump in and hope that everything is working today. And yeah, we're still online here. Good. Okay. So in this first notebook, I'm just showing you how to create a new feature group. Basically, I've got a pandas data frame, and I'm creating a feature group from that. SageMaker is smart enough to understand what are the names of the features and what are the data types, so it can automatically create that for you. Once you have a feature group in place, you can ingest an entire data frame in there or use put record directly. Once that's there, it's easy to get the latest feature values immediately from the online store. You can get one record or multiple records, one feature, multiple features, not a problem. Here, I'm just going to ingest a couple more copies of that same feature group, one with the zip code set to 2 on February 2nd, and another one with the zip code set to all 3s on February 3rd. This will help me demonstrate time travel for you. So you can see once you do a query against the offline store, you've got multiple records all available. It's an append-only store. And then what you can also do here is navigate to Glue. So where we automatically created a Glue catalog for your table. You could then jump to Athena and do a quick query against that automatically. There you go. You can do an extraction of training data. Here I just did a quick model, train test split, did a training of a simple model, did some predictions, pulling out features from the online store. With respect to time travel, here we're doing a query to say, hey, using the offline store, get me the way the features looked as of February 2nd. So here we're seeing that they were all 2s. What about as of February 1st? And here we're able to see that as well. We also support row level time travel. So in a lot of cases, you've got the need for very accurate training data sets that take into account transactions that happened over time, and you want to avoid data leakage using features that would not have been there at the time of the transaction. So we're able to take an input data set like this with IDs and timestamps, and then pull out all of the accurate features automatically for you. So as an example of this here, we've got a set of transactions we're looking for at various very specific timestamps with customer IDs as well as house IDs. And I'm asking to pull back features across various feature groups, and there you go. A lot of cases, you're taking featureized data and ingesting it into the feature store, but you may also want to easily do a set of feature pipelines where you're writing very little code to do those transformations. Here's an example where you can just write a simple function, apply transforms, and I've written some utility functions here to basically schedule a feature pipeline by just writing that one little code snippet. Then you can have that scheduled and running over time for you. So you could use SageMaker pipelines for that. You could do the same thing with SQL coding as well. So here we're just creating features using SQL. Same thing, you can schedule those as a feature pipeline also. And performance is always a big question. Let's just do a quick demo of that. So here I'm running through 5,000 calls to get some records. And I was able to get an average of 7 milliseconds. The P95 in this case was 10. What we're showing down below here is an example where I've got a feature group of 200 features, and I want to have 20 input files, a couple million feature records across those 200 features, and show that we can actually scale out and decrease the ingestion processing times by doing that. So for example, here, an initial job took 20 minutes. If I give it double the amount of horsepower, I can cut it down to 10 and so forth. Here I've got, using 8 machines, I was able to do the job in like 3 minutes with significant throughput. Couple more things quickly. I know I'm just a minute or two over here. One is this notion of a feature set. So let's say I wanted to identify a set of features from multiple feature groups. You can easily retrieve for online inference across those multiple feature groups and get them back into a single vector to feed your model. And 2 more things quickly. I'll need about 1 more minute here. What we're able to do is integrate with a profiling tool. So now we're able to get a feature group profile and feature statistics. And if you run those feature monitoring jobs over time, you can generate profiles over time that can then get you access to feature drift detection, and you could hook up alerts to that. So let me just, there's a couple of quick calls you can make to do that. Feature monitoring prep on a given feature group, and then run a monitoring job on that. And here is the console that you'd end up being able to see for that feature group. You can see correlations, you can see value distributions, summary of all the statistics about features, and then drill into specific features and see how they're distributed as well. And then the last thing I'll do is regarding lineage. So we've got a simple library that can, if you add a simple call to your feature pipelines or your training jobs, it can automatically keep track of the associations and the artifacts and answer questions like, hey, I've got some drift detection. I've got some feature drift on my claim feature group. What models is that going to impact, or vice versa? So that was a lot in a hurry. You'll get a copy of this deck at the end as well. We've got a workshop out there that you can use to go through Feature Store, put it through its paces. There's a couple of new modules in there that were added today. And then there's a number of blog posts out there to take you through streaming ingestion, feature pipelines, using Java, point-in-time queries, and so forth. And here's some documentation. So that's all I've got. So thank you for listening. Keep me posted on your use cases and any cool patterns you're building. We'd love to help you build a POC or help you in any way.